I'm Eric Russell. I am out and about with the cast of this year's Acts of Faith show here at Richmond Triangle Players before it hits home. This will be done in conjunction with Sycamoure Rouge, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a powerful, powerful show. We'll start here, work our way across, tell who you are, how you're part of the show, and who you play.
All right. My name is Shanea N. Taylor, and I play the director.
Very important.
I'm Delvin Young. I play Wendell.
Belinda Todd. I was Reba, the mother.
Toney Cobb, and I played Bailey.
Jennifer Creesh, and I play Dr. Weinberg.
I'm Jasmine Hammond, and I play Angel and Simone.
I'm Carolyn Moore, and I play the nurse.
I'm Todd Patterson, and I play Junior.
I'm Thomas E. Nolan, and I play Douglas.
I'm Karla Brown, and I play Maybelle.
Yeah, what a powerful, powerful show. Now, before this started tonight, you and I were talking out in the lobby, and I was just saying, this is the first all African-American cast that's ever been here at Richmond Triangle Players, and then tackling such a subject that we don't get to see the side of from the community. We always see, you know, as someone said back in the Christmas show, the Stops Christmas show, white people problems. But we don't really get to see the African-American side of the community and its impact and stuff. And this show was written back in the 80s, correct?
Actually, 1990s.
1990s,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. When the epidemic was still going on, and we still didn't have a face. The face was a white person with AIDS. But we saw the very negative, oh, there must be an IV drug user. What brought you to this show? What made you want to do this show as a director?
As a director, I think the thing that stands out to me the most is a study that I read, and forgive me, I don't remember where it was from, but there was a study saying, and that was taken in 2010, that the newest and the highest number of new AIDS cases were African American men ages 13 to 24. So once I read that, it kind of hit home for me. You know, how are these young men getting resources? Who are they talking to? Who are they able to tell and share their stories with? Who are they coming out to? Who are they asking for advice? And you know, I started to kind of look at my life and the life of other African American gay individuals like mine, and going, we don't discuss this. You know, we say that, yeah, we don't usually see this, we don't typically see this on stage, but we don't typically talk about it in our own communities either. And so, as a result of that, we have young men who don't have resources, who don't have anybody to unload on, to talk to about their own experiences. And so it was like, well, let's put this on stage, let's open up these conversations, let's kick this door down. You know, you go to church, and you know, you may have the gay choir director or the members of the congregation who are gay, but we don't talk about it. I love you, but we don't talk about it. Or if we do, we talk about it under hushed tones. I remember growing up, and anything dealing with a gay individual, it was always, oh, well, he's funny. Oh, well, you know, she's different. And hushed voices. And so it wasn't really a venue to actually speak out or come out as who you are. So I definitely wanted to put on stage not only the African American family experience, but the African American family experience dealing with HIV and AIDS and sexuality, and what are those conversations like? Invite people into that dining room table to have those conversations. What does that look like at home? So,
Say we can talk dining room tables and conversations. Wendell has a hard time with those conversations to begin with Simone and with Douglas. That whole scene when he's like two people at one time, and he can't say anything. He's trying to find the right words, and it's such a very powerful, powerful moment. For you as actors in this show, what did you bring from your own experiences to this show, from your own personal lives, from these conversations? Did you ever have these conversations with people who just go, oh, I've been there, done that, I remember that as a child?
Sure, I'll go first. Very interesting enough, my father passed away in 2006. I never doubted for any moment that he loved me with all his heart, but we really didn't talk a whole lot. You know, and I'm heterosexual, by the way. But I would just could imagine that if I were in a different lifestyle, how difficult it would have been to, to talk with my father about that. Probably virtually impossible. He was by no stretch of the imagination a mean person or anything. He was conservative, naturally, but I could just imagine how difficult it would have been for me. And so I said all that to say this is that, I know he loved me with all his heart, and I loved him with all my heart, but we really didn't talk a whole lot, even about girlfriends and stuff. We didn't really have that conversation, but it was always mainly with my mother, conversations I would have for intimate type of things.
Anyone else?
A lot of mine, it's kind of opposite of yours, Tony. I have a son, my wife and I, and it's this day and age. Well, let me back up a little. Before I was married, before I had a child or anything, we would pose the question, what would you do if your child was gay? And I believe I answered it some radical, crazy answer without having any knowledge or experience. But this day and time, especially now that I have a son, this question gets very real about the future. So when I was getting into this script and I was thinking about things, a lot of times I would go back to, how would that conversation go with him? Where would I pull? What would he do? What would he be thinking? How can I connect? And what would I do? Would I be mad? Would I be upset? Am I going to stop loving him? Love him harder? Do I understand? Where do I go? Not having any real experience with that. So a lot of times, especially when I'm trying to talk to my dad or my mom, and I'm like, just nothing comes out. Where do you go? It's that thing. You don't know what you do until you pose with it, until you have to do it.
Because when your character has to have those conversations, he thinks the person who's going to understand the most is his mother, because he opens this whole thing about, I love with my mom. She is the first true love. He wants to come home to his family because he also has two other families. He's got this woman, Simone, who he's bought this ring for, but then he has his other love, his other life.
His real love.
His longest relationship.
So,
his real love.
And so he's got his son back at home, so he's got 4 different families here. He's got his own son. He's the son of his loving parents, and then he's got these 2 other people as well. So that's a lot of circles. It's all like, wait, who am I in this relationship? But when he comes home to find that acceptance, the people he thought would accept him reject him outright.
Right.
And the person he thought would reject him is the one who steps up.
Exactly.
Without giving away any spoilers. The color red was used a lot in the show.
Yes.
I noticed it. It's a red dress.
Absolutely.
The son gets a red jacket. Was that done on purpose?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The symbol of AIDS recognition and remembrance is the red ribbon. And it has been consistently so. It just so happens that World AIDS Day falls on my birthday, so it's always been a symbol that I've been very familiar with. So it was very important for me in the show to put those splashes of that remembrance, of that recognition in.
Now, is it more symbolic of the people who are wearing the red in the show? Like, Maybelle comes in wearing red, the son's wearing red, and just showing those? Or just having that red worked out for that outfit?
Red definitely worked out for that outfit.
Was I reading too much into it?
But those who are wearing red are definitely those in the show who stick around the longest. And it's such a saturated red. It's a thick, deep red, and it kind of connects back to those family lines, those family alliances. Even where Wendell doesn't think that his relationship is as strong with his father, there's that unspoken bond, that unspoken, I know what you're going through, son, without you even having to form the words. His son, we're left with the question of, whose legacy does he continue? Does he take what you know, he's heard his grandmother say while he's living with his grandmother and Maybelle, and all the things that you can imagine that are being said in that house while Reba's going through her own process. You know, does he listen to Bailey and be a man, this is what a man is, or does he go with his father's love that is undeniable and that he knows even across the miles, they're still that bonded. They're still that bonded. And I think that if you watch the show, Dwayne is definitely his father's son. It leaves us with the question of, how is he going to continue on? What choices is he going to make in his own life? You know, as a response to being bullied for his father being gay, what is he going to do? He is our eyes throughout the entire show. He sees everything. He hears everything. What does he take away?
One of the things I took away from it was the concept of trust.
Yes.
I trusted you. I can no longer trust these walls. I can't. Anyone else want to touch on that, you know, in terms of trust, in terms of your character and how they interrelate with Wendell, in terms of that trust issue, because Douglas has trust, you have trust.
Well, Reba, the mother of Wendell, has put all her trust in her home. She's had such pride in just her family and making this home that she doesn't know anything else. And when this comes into her house, her life is shattered. So, you know, it's like a false trust is what she has had.
How about Junior?
So much stress. Yeah, piggybacking off what she, it always, like, especially like the black community, like it's always like the, you know, the mom is always, she's always wants to like, you know, it's like, you know, did I do something wrong? Like, what did I, like, you know, and they, you know, they put they put all this kind of, they put their everything, you know, she says, I made you, like, they put all of what they have, and, you know, and just, and like, it's, when a lot of times, you know, a lot of black mothers, you know, they say, like, you know, it's like a failing, like, you know, like she said, a false trust, like, she has, like, she thinks her son's gonna grow to do these great things, and now doesn't know why, like, now, like, all that is gone, like, she doesn't, it's kind of like, you know, like she says, you know, all I know how to do is be somebody's mother. All I know how to be is be somebody's, you know, take the caretaker, you know. So when those things fall short of what she thinks she's supposed to be, it's like, you know, it's like, now what am I supposed to do? Like, you know, especially with her, she doesn't work. Like, she puts all of her, what she had in her sons, and now that it's, you know, now that this, you know, this disease to her, it feels like, you know, all of it was for naught. Like, there's nothing that else can be done. Like, you know, it's over, you know.
And may I say, that's where I think this fits into the acts of faith play, because she has really placed her trust outside of her God.
That's what I want to get next, because there's a lot of times when Daniel comes to see Wendell, he brings Douglas, I'm sorry.
Daniel's not in this, so don't tell nobody about that.
Daniel didn't make it. He didn't make the class.
You are a musician.
One day I will learn to write that. Douglas brings him a Bible, and he makes the comment, oh, you brought me a Bible. And he's told, you know, maybe if you pray more, did you pray enough?
Yeah.
And I thought, this is that book there. This is, you know, the good African-American Christian family. And what do? They turn their backs on it.
And that's what I was, as far as the character that I played, Maybelle, in the community now, I have a lot of friends, you know, who are HIV positive or have AIDS, or who have had their backs turned from their family. And playing a character that symbolizes what happened to them. There's a good friend of mine that passed away last year, and, you know, he died without his family. You know, he had a couple of friends on his deathbed, but his family didn't show up. They didn't want to plan the funeral or anything like that, so he had to rely, you know, on his friends to do that. So, you know, as far as the character that I played, it just kind of gave me that moment to where, how can you love your family members, your aunt or someone, friends of the family, you love this person, and find out something about them, the next minute you just don't even want to touch them or anything like that. So,
Hate the sin, love the sinner.
Yeah. And your character is truly the only one besides his father who does say at one point, I love you, which is very powerful. You know, you're not, a biological aunt, but you're a friend of the family, not that extended family that comes to see.
There's also, Simone's love
Right.
for Wendell as well. And I think that adds a nice little nuance and piece as well.
Yeah, I was thinking just now that actually Simone is one of the only characters aside from the doctor and nurse who don't mention God in the entire show. And on this trust concept, all of her trust is in Wendell. She sees her whole life in Wendell. And I think with her being a school teacher and being around children all the time, she's so ready to be a mother. And I get that from Reba, that feeling of I need to take care of my husband and my child. That's all I want. And I think that's an interesting dynamic to see, like the young want to be mother and the mother who has been developed, and to see what happens in between, basically, through the show.
And there's a trust issue between Wendell and his own doctor. You had this great moment where it's your fault, your people did this, you must have done something.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And your character tries to rebuild that trust with her patient.
Yes, and I think my character, Dr. Weinberg, has worked, as she states, in this epidemic for a long time. And, she's not one of these doctors that have the big fancy house with the big car. She is in the trenches. And I think it's interesting when you talked about trust and how, she comes to be one of the people he relies on most, and who, he trusts the most, and who comforts him at different times, and who also is quite honest with him. Point blank honest with him as to, where he stands.
Right. I think just with people say you're walking on fooling yourself. Because in the Black community, so this must be push under the rug. No, you need to realize this. You have it. You need to come to terms with it. You can't just keep going around saying, I'm fine. It's just the flu. Just you're like, oh, he says I have AIDS. It's just the flu. You're fine. You just don't want to talk about it. That's why. When it finally, comes to the realization, and so the realization is so, like she said, so shattering for Reba, I think.
Well, because of history,
right?
History of trusting doctors or about different cases, different diseases and things. Well, I'm not going to go to that doctor. I'm going to go to my doctor, who will tell me what I want to hear, but not necessarily give me what I need to get better, or give me what I need to seek the resources that I need to continue longevity of life.
What is one thing you want an audience member who's not from the African American community to take away with them from the show?
That's a good question.
Unconditional love.
Absolutely.
Unconditional. That one word.
Communication.
Yeah.
Communication. I think that the first thing that we see is this African American family, obviously on stage. I mean, that's going to stand out. But I think that a couple of moments into the first scene, you recognize that this show transcends race, it transcends culture, it transcends even gender.
I agree.
I would say home. What is home? It's not just a foundation or a physical building, but where do you place everything? Where's your home? And what do you do to protect it?
Family relationships are as complex in the African American community as any other ethnic group, maybe even more so here in America.
Same question. What do you want someone from the African American community to take away from this show?
To be open.
Yes.
Just to be open.
To be who you are. To fight the stereotypes that we expect, our men, our women to continue with. You don't have to be the butch male. You don't have to be the caregiver. You don't have to be the breadwinner. Be the male that you were meant to be, and let that be your legacy.
Take responsibility of yourself as far as sexual. Educate yourself about HIV and AIDS, and find out, things that,
Know
a
your
lot of people
status,
think,
sort of thing.
know your status.
What are you passing down to the younger generations?
Yeah.
I wish that Seth was here to be able to speak to
Yeah.
the young man who plays Dwayne. He is 14 years old, playing a 12-year-old. And I can only imagine the conversations that he's having with self, the conversations that he's having with his parents at home about this show. I mean, we've already began to open up that conversation, and it starts with him. You know, in the last scene we see that he's gotten some bullying, you know, at the boys' center as a result of who his father is. And it's amazing to me that we're doing this show now after the big conversation, the big assault that we've had against young gay kids being bullied in school, and their reactions to that. And I think that now, as we're looking at gay marriage and it becoming more open and accepted, and the laws are backing us and everything, so it's not only the young gay kids that we're thinking about how they're dealing with it, but it's the children of gay parents and what they're receiving on the other end. I think that that's something that we're definitely going to have to pay attention to moving forward in this.
It's not just the LGBT kid, it's their straight brother or sister, it's their parents going to work because their parent could be bullied by someone at work because they find out your son or daughter is gay or lesbian, transgender, and it's everyone in the family is impacted by it.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
But just to think back on what Shanea said, true, I mean, I think there's definitely progress. Like there's been, Aqua speech, supported,
the Stonewall.
Yeah, exactly. He mentioned like an actual support equal rights and all that. But like, I think in that same vein, like you think about, well, just in the theater world, like how many other plays with predominantly black cast addresses? You mean a lot of white plays, you have America, you have Jeffrey and Love Galore, and all these other ones. Even now, they've even delved into like they have plays about AIDS that have more comedic elements because they've gotten to that point where it's like more accepted. But like this is, I can't name too many other plays that have African Americans that deal with this particular topic, because I think they said something about, again, like going back to African American community, how much we have to move our, like try to keep up, like and try to get to where the majority, not the majority, but where people are now, more accepting of it. For with us, I think we're still a little bit behind the times. And again, like with our involvement in the Black church and how it's such a big part of us, and how he's, again, like I think we have gotten better, but I think we need, it's always among African American community, there's also a lot more that we have to do about it.
And recognizing that treatment isn't fluid. Yes, in affluent neighborhoods, yes, you can get the treatment that you need and sustain your life. But what about in the communities where, like Wendell went to a clinic? He's in the city. He's branched off from home. He's living a much different life than he did when he was at home. He's an artist, so he's living in the city, and he goes to a clinic where he's not getting necessarily the latest drugs, the latest treatment, the doctors that care, whose passion is there. They're getting the overworked doctor and nurse who have seen this time and time again and have been bullied time and time again and don't have a lot of compassion to share.
I just want the African American community to come.
Indeed.
And I know that we speak about the African American community, but there's, other communities of color. I'm a gay Hispanic woman, and it is very quiet, hush, not spoken to. Two women living together, you just don't talk about it. You just don't speak about it. And again, the communication is so important. And the lines of communication need to be open, like you said, through generations. I'm very lucky. I'm first generation, but my father's incredibly liberal. And so I grew up very, very exposed to lots of different things. And I thank God for that. I really do. I thank God for that. And it would be wonderful to see more and more people experience that kind of love and that kind of communication.
Final thoughts. Dr. Shanea.
Well, I think there's some things that we have mentioned, and I thought it was interesting, the dialogue that went around. And since I don't talk as much, I guess I'm but there's something that we touched on, and there is denial. And we look at the black or people of color, and here we are in the show. These things happen all over. And having been in Richmond for a long period of time, I've seen this happen a lot in white communities, of having a diagnosis and being ostracized from your family and friends. And it's happening today that people still call out people who are HIV positive, yet they don't know their status and are not practicing safer sex, because we see how people are thriving with drugs and new drugs and looking good, doing quite well, have been HIV positive or diagnosed with AIDS for a decade or two. And we're not as afraid of that. But this play deals with bisexual men who were probably not being as careful, because it seems that men probably don't think that AIDS can touch them. And I guess bisexual men have the idea that if they don't play certain roles or in certain positions, then they're not really gay. And it's not coming to us. It just happens to people who do certain things. In this instance, you have a man, Wendell, who is having an affair with another man who is married, and that's the role that I play. And it's hard to redeem that. But he's married, he's got a wife and kids, he's an upstanding attorney, supposedly, and he has an affair with the guy. And Wendell is also in a relationship with a woman who I gathered that they're not really having protected sex. Somewhere along the line, he finds out that he's sick and discovers that it's something more serious than a cough or a cold or a flu. It's AIDS. And he has to deal with that. And I applaud him for speaking to Douglas about this, coming to him. And obviously Douglas and Wendell have shared a lot of things in their lives over the past 7 or 8 years they've been together. They talk about a lot of things. Douglas knows about Simone. Simone doesn't know about Douglas. Wendell tells Douglas about his diagnosis. Douglas, I think, is kind of selfish, because he's in probably the reaction anyone would get. You're concerned about yourself and your family, and probably about being outed more so than being sick. Yet he goes to visit Wendell, and he hangs in there and helps support him through those times when he goes back and deals with his family. I find this story rather beautiful in a number of ways. I love that we have this cast being here telling the story. I love that we have Shanea directing this story and putting it on his feet, which is why I really want to be a part of it. It's difficult for me to watch and hear certain scenes because I have an older brother. I have my dad, and I got along so well. So when we're discussing some things about reminiscing about your relationships, that hits home with me. So I would just say that it's something that you will want to come out to see. It's quite entertaining in a number of ways, but you can also escape from your daily life, see something, a range of, have an range of emotions, and you get to see yourself and your relationships with others. And I think this show is really about relationships.
Yes, yes.
I really like that we're able to paint, and Delvin and Thomas do a beautiful job of it. I was really glad that we were able to paint a loving relationship between the two of them. Not a man who's on the down low, not a man who's skipping out to have a little bit of fun on the weekends, but there's a deep love. I mean, you say that he's your best friend. You know, he's the longest relationship that you have, and I don't think that that's something that we get to see often from two men who aren't overly effeminate. You know, we get to see the love between them and get invited into that room as well.
Because there we see more effeminate, or they're so it's just a trick. They hooked up, they got the scruff, they're like, okay, yeah, and then it's over with.
Right.
They showed what I would call typical American mainstream.
Yeah.
They showed a romance. They fell in love.
Just great love story.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think, if I might add, one thing the show also touches on is me playing the nurse, and my scenes with the doctor is the medical people who, especially when the early onset days, who were those unsung heroes who were in the trenches and just watching their patients one after one just die.
And no one coming to claim them or do anything.
Right, and you know, I mean, they're still out there, you know, there are those people who work at the clinics who don't make a lot of money and have to deal with death and dying every day. So I think the story also touches on that part of the issue as well.
And you get to meet characters like Angel.
Yeah.
Who?
Because he says, welcome to the family. You're thinking, what does that mean? What does that
Right.
mean?
What family?
What family? Then we get it. Thank you for doing this show. It is a story that needed to be told, and now more than ever, because there is still no cure for AIDS or HIV. There are treatments, but again, people knowing their status, because it impacts so many people. Powerful show here. Made me cry, made me laugh. Which is good. Two things at once. Laughing and crying. Fantastic. That's an Acts of Faith show. Right on the money. Right on the money. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Acts of Faith series is the largest American theater productions in the around here in the Richmond area. To find out other shows for them, go to theactsoffaith.org. Before It Hit Home runs through February 9th here at Richmond Triangle Players. Tickets for that are at rtriangle.org, but this show will run at Sycamoure Rouge. What dates?
It will run February 22nd through March the 10th. It's been a long run.
I'm reading something back there. I can read.
SycamoreRouge.org.
More tickets, yeah.
Well, thank you once again for being here. Powerful show. Thank you for sharing with us. I'm Eric Russell. I've been out and about with the cast of Before It Hits Home here at Richmond Triangle Players. You never know where I'll turn up next, so tune in next time to find out. See ya.
All right now.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.